Is it possible to slightly dim the... And I meant the other... Okay, let me get started. They become friends at RAI. I came here last year as well, and I had the privilege to interact with many of you then on what last year was the topic around, and that set off a series of events around that thought. And this year what I'm given to believe, which is a natural movement in that direction, is around what else, right? Today the word connected has been used much more ubiquitously than what it was last year and definitely the year before, etc., etc. So the way we're going to get started is I have a very short presentation, right? Very, very unlike a consulting person to say, but I'm really going to keep it very, very short. And then I would want all of us to benefit from the presence of my esteemed panelists, and we'll have an engaging discussion. And we promised each other that we'll speak from our heart, right? Whatever is bubbling within us to share within this topic, because it's fairly wide, right? And the word connected customer and collaborative and agile value chain, I mean, if I were to do a dipstick, would mean multiple things for all of us sitting here. So let's have a discussion, and as appropriate, we'll invite people from the audience to pitch in. So let me just go through this quickly. Okay, I was given this, I should use this, right? Perfect. So what does this say? This talks about, I think none of this would be, by the way, new news to all of you. There's been enough and more written about how connectivity or digitalization is becoming a force to reckon with. Right? All of us would have elders at home who, till a few years back, would not have wanted to get into the digital world. Now I'm sure all of us know at least one elder who has switched over from, whether it be a hand phone to a smartphone, whether it be from one of the earlier avatars of media to a new avatar of media. So it's something that's here to stay, right? Multiple figures around this are here just to exemplify that this is here to stay. I just want to add one thing which is not on this slide, which is, if you look at it from the lens of a customer, what is increasingly becoming certain that it is not digital versus brick and mortar. It is more and more becoming digital and brick and mortar. How do we ensure that we have a seamless set of choices available to the customer? And the glamorous term for that is omni-channel. How do we ensure that there's a seamless set of choices to the customer, a la omni-channel, that enables him or her to make the choice that he or she would like to do and not forced to do because of lack of choices, right? That's the central theme why we see different companies who have been able to provide that are the ones who are one of these 4 unicorns that are mentioned here, or are the ones who are winning the battle to win the customer, or are the ones who are slightly ahead of the curve than others in the race to be the best retailer in this theme. This is something that I had showed last year, but the first row. The second row, frankly, is what we think are now, given the fact that customers are willing to be connected, what do we as retailers have to offer or have to enhance our offering slightly more than what we were doing earlier to ensure that we hit the bullseye of the customer's requirement, right? So we have to have consistency in messaging across our channels. Channel A can't be different in the message to the customer that channel B. And this messaging has multiple gamuts depending on what the customer asked. I recently did a survey, a consumer survey around this, where one of the most itchy point that customers were saying is, even today retailers are offering different price points of purchasing the same thing in channel A versus channel B. And explaining to them that, our cost of serve to you is very different whether we go from channel A to channel B. Unfortunately, the customer doesn't care about our cost to serve them. It is for retailers to figure out how to normalize that. The second thing is to customize recommendations, right? There's this term called targeted marketing, etc., etc. All of us, I'm sure, must be getting mailers by the dozen. But customization in recommendations is becoming the ask from customers. I'm sure all of us delete mailers even without opening them because of the plethora of those that come to us. Right. Thirdly is, and it's kind of linked to the first point, but it moves from browse to buy, is how do we provide seamless omni-channel experience? The customers wants to go to X, Y, Z, and then make a choice where to buy from, when to buy from, how to pay before they go ahead to make the choice, right? The fourth, which is a point that will start impacting us as retailers, our pockets, right? Our P&L, is how do we develop flexibility and agility in our delivery systems? And I'll dwell a bit more on this in the next few slides. The fifth, linked to the fourth, but a slightly forward-looking point, is how can we improve responsiveness, right? Let me just try and demystify the difference between agility and responsiveness. Agility is the ability to meet a set demand in the fastest time period, right? You can measure it by service level or something like that. Responsiveness is the ability to manage variability, right? You just can't plan for it, but you have to start building systems to do that. Okay, I was not prepared for this. Can someone help? Okay, this is fine. It's again gone. Sorry, to bear with me. Okay, it's come back. So, can we move to the next slide? I think that's where the white screen is coming. Okay, let me just try and speak through this, else we'll take a bit more of time. Just see if this can be brought up. See, fundamentally, if we move from a customer to our internal retail operations, there are three areas that we can use the theme of connectivity or digitization. And please refer to this when I use this word as a very, very broad term. Right? There is no specificity right now. Okay, we're back on the slide. The three themes are, can we do better planning? Can we engage better with our supply chain, whether it be sourcing, manufacturing, or logistics partners? And how can we leverage connectivity in the point of sale? This is where the moment of truth with the customer comes in. And at the center part of this, you would see the different value chain participants that we as retailers are constantly engaging with. One is our internal organization. Then second is suppliers. Third is service providers. And there are a myriad other sets of value chain participants. We think there are 5 themes that we need to focus on, right? One is in planning the optimal use of big data. This is where all the data can be put in, and people are seeing advantages in taking assortment, pricing, and promotion decisions using data analytics. In our supply chain, we have to move to a responsive supply chain, and we'll just come to what does it mean. Finally, how can we integrate different partners of our supply chain right upstream from the design stage? Our research shows that most of the offerings that go wrong are rarely wrong because of the customer interface or the supply chain. They are wrong because the original offering was wrong, right? The design of that offering was wrong. The customer never wanted it. From a point of sales, again, using big data decisions for, I think there's a repetition here. We'll just need to have a look at it. It's basically using the point of sales software. So using big data in the point of sales software to come up with what decisions can be taken at the moment of truth. And the last point actually should not be reading this, it should be reading how can we digitally enable our sales force. This is something where the FMCG world has learned a lot from retail, and as we speak, my personal experience is that the FMCG players have moved a notch ahead of the retailers. Right? For them, their customer is the retailer. For us, our customer is the shopper. But there, the point of sale engagement that the salesperson has with the customer is slightly more advanced. I think that's something that we as retailers can just pick up a bit more. So I'll just spend 30 seconds on each one of these. So using big data for assortment, pricing, and promotion decision, most of the retailers that we talked to and surveyed are saying we see this as an advantage, right? But it is still that close to 30% of them are not using it at all. So our suggestion, no rocket science, is that this is something which is absolutely necessary. This is something which gives most bang for the buck. In fact, 10 years earlier, people were doing this using Excel sheets. The answers are still the same, but the Six Sigma level of consistency that we get by using big data is much stronger than by doing it in Excel sheets. That's something that all of us who have been through this journey would unequivocally agree. This is about having a collaborative and responsive supply chain. We need to be more open to share information. This is the single most to-do that we in the retail community have to be open to. Even today, we think our data is our data, and if we give it to somebody else, all hell will break loose. Sorry, that's not the point any longer. The Western world has shown us that collaborating data is a much better way to improve profitability and working with the suppliers. It's a different matter that there the suppliers tend to be a bit larger than what we have here, but the philosophy is the same. The third thing is about having integration upstream into the value chain, right? Here we're talking about extending the capability in design, sourcing, manufacturing, where needed, and this term is used very regularly, using a segmented supply chain approach. I think here also, our FMCG friends or consumer product friends have just moved a notch ahead than all of us in retail. So I would encourage us to have a conversation around it. The fourth point is, and this is what you should have read earlier, is the real-time usage of data that is available in us. Right? This is the POS data. We really need to move from passive data capture to actively engaging. I don't know if we have anybody from Starbucks here, but Starbucks is a case study globally where they have really upped the game in using POS data to engage with the customer. Literally using customers' history. If I were a customer and go and place an order for a coffee, they actually have salespeople who just using the pop-up say, oh, by the way, do you want a bagel as well? Do you want XYZ as well? Because they know this customer has historically purchased this. I've not seen that happening in Starbucks in India, but it's something that as a theme we can all pick up. And the related thing to this is having a digitally enabled sales force. Even today, and this is not from this study, but even today we do know from consumer research that the most disheartening retail experience is the experience where the customer interacts with the point of sales person, right? Whether it be the queuing time or whether it be just the experience. Sometimes the software doesn't work, sometimes the loyalty point doesn't work, sometimes that experience itself takes longer than buying the 4 or 5 items that we need to buy, right? This is where the biggest jump has to happen, from a disheartening and a disengaged conversation to something where the salesperson is having an engaging conversation with the customer.